Welcome back to another GameMaker tutorial, and this time I wanted to show you a neat little thing which is animation curves, and this is basically what you're seeing on the screen. So what are those curves and what are they actually good for? Because, well, if you look at one of those, this looks like this. Oh my god, what the hell is that? And here looks like super fancy schmancy stuff. But rest assured, easy stuff, and it is pretty easy to implement and actually to do some really cool stuff which normally would be a little bit more complicated. So for example, if you're seeing the one up, this is an ease function. Link in the description below to my videos how you can actually utilize this. And for example, if you want to use the new stuff, which is the animation curve, well, these are 4 examples how you can utilize. Of course there are more uses, but let's say for some really cool and easy to implement animations, this is for you. So I'm gonna skip on my intro. This is One Up Indie. Hello, share, subscribe, and so on and so on. So basically, what is this graph? So for example, this is a graph, how it is being represented, and what you need to know is that you put a number in this graph which is on this axis, which can be between 0 and 1. It cannot go over or under these kind of values. And let's say you put the number in which is, I don't know, 0.4. So 0.4 would be something here. So in the end you are getting this point back, and this is just the beauty of it. So what you need to understand is animation curves are a visual representation of a value, because sometimes you're putting in some values and you're not sure how this would look like, but this thing is pretty cool because you can already see, okay, what is this all about? So for example, if you're seeing this, well, Xenos shape. So if you're thinking, okay, great, I've seen that in math, boring, I actually didn't pay attention to my math classes. Okay, so here the same. But what can you actually do with this? And this, the great part about this part is this is a hovering. For example, this is a start value, so this dude is going up and then slowly going down, and it's going up, and you kind of loop that thing. And this is exactly what you're seeing here on the ease function on the one up, or for example on this guy here, which is the hover, which is the implementation of the animation curve. So once again, you put a value in, you get a value out, which is one of on this specific graph on this specific timeline. So how can we actually use it? So let's say we create an object, we call it object test, and actually let's do with the spiral. So what you have been seeing before is just basically a spiral, which is kind of interesting. And now for example you're thinking, okay, so this is going nearer and nearer and nearer, but let's say we change the animation curve of the spiral, which looks like this, a start value and then going downwards. But let's say you want to add another value and you want to belly it up like this. This is kind of interesting because this is the fun part. You can quickly adjust how things are going. So as you can see, it's long, and then quickly jumps in. Or we do the opposite, do it belly down. Now what you will see, that it quickly will go into the center, and then bam, it stays longer in there. So this is the beauty of the animation graph. Or we just kill this dude, delete point, we don't want this. So how can we actually implement it? Because this is the interesting part. So let's say you want to do this object test inside the room, and then what we want to manipulate is basically the Y position, and we just want it to hover up and down. So how can we do this? Well, we in our step event say, hey, our Y is equal to our start Y position, which we have here one set plus a thing which we're gonna do in a few seconds. So what is basically going on? So we want to, and this is the interesting part, to get access to this graph. So for example, we create a new one, so create animation curve. So basically we want to access it, and if you watch the documentation, it says not curve, but it says animation channel or just channel, which can be a little bit confusing at the start, but this is basically the same. They used a very specific syntax, so this is as you can see, channel. So these are the code words for that, so animation curve and then channel instead of curve, which is a little bit confusing for at least for me it was confusing, because well, if you go into your animation curve, which we just created, it says channel, not curve, 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 everything is curve. Well, I guess this is the syntax, maybe they were gonna change it, no idea. So basically what you're seeing in front of you, first of all, you can give it a name as you want. So for example, this is animation curve and we call it, I don't know, hover 2, because we already have a hover one. And then you can create additional ones if you like. You can, I don't know, change their initial points if you like, or for example, you can kill it because we don't need it. And then as you can see, we're having 2 points, but let's say we put it, press our mouse, as you can see there is this little icon here, and actually this is not interesting. So there was a little function where you can actually do this, but it's gone. What you need to understand is this graph is between 0, so this is the start value on the horizontal axis, and this ends in 1, as you can see. So our first point is horizontally 0 and our last point is horizontally 1. So this is start point, this is the end point. Now once again we put in a value and then we get this thing on this line, whatever it is shaped. Maybe you want to do it something like this. You say, okay, this could be a value, but let's say we want to make it a little bit more, let's say more precise, and therefore we just go for those kind of values. And this is of course completely wrong what I'm showing you, because I want it to be something like this. So 0.2 and 0.75, 0.25. Okay, so these kind of points, so here and here, and maybe we want to make it a little bit smooth, so you can go to linear or you can smoothen it out, and as you can see, these kind of values are pretty cool. It would be actually interesting if there would be a tooltip which is showing what kind of value we have here and here and here. Somewhere below doesn't show. It's a shame. Oh well. The next thing is, so one thing we can actually change. So as you can see, we can zoom in and out. So do something like this or snap like that. But as you can see, the maximum value here is 1 and the minimum value is -1. But maybe you want to change those values, make the graph a little bit bigger. So let's go for 200 for 20 and -20, bam. And as you can see, now this looks very, very flat, so we put it up and down. Or we change those values, because this is the vertical, 20 and -20. And bam, we have our first graph. So our graph is correct, is ready, and we already have this very specific curvature to make hovering. So how can we actually access that thing? So for that we need a little step. Just copy those ones on here, just a second, note, and here we go. So we need to get and apply something which is called, this is a little syntax which you need to understand, curve channel evaluate. And here this is a script, and that script is just checking, hey, what do we need? Actually we need our channel, so this one which we created here on the right side, and then position X. And position X is actually a position somewhere between 1 and 0. So basically the input value which we want to have. So basically the visual representation of that. So how can we actually get that? Well, we create a value. I just call it graph X, because in the end it is X, or graph horizontal, call it whatever you like. So that one we can put in, but then we need the channel, and this is the little tricky part, because it just says channel, but it actually means the animation curve. And oh my god, this looks really bad. So hover 2, we want to have this very specific animation curve with this specific curve here, or they call the channel, so we call it here banana. Let's go for banana. That's actually no, banana. Come on, banana. Here we go. So how can we actually get that? Well, we need to do a little in between, which is called animation curve get channel. So we need to get the channel so we can put it in, and that thing is requiring first of all the curve struct or ID. Yeah. So basically this is the thing which we created, so animation curve, and then in quotations our channel or our curve. Doesn't really matter because this is in the end the same. We just put it in here, but we need to put it as a string, or we can go for 0 because this is the first one. It doesn't really matter. So both things are valid, but let's go for banana so it actually looks better. So we kill here, and then we say, okay, var get our channel and save it in a variable. So what we are doing here is we're getting from our channel the very specific, from our animation curve, our very specific channel, and that thing we can actually put in this channel evaluate. And why is that important? Well, because here we can actually manipulate and get the value back which we want. So this thing is returning this specific value, or for example this specific value, or this one, depending what kind of X factor you put in. So for example here we go on, we are 0.5, so we would be getting this point. That's the little trick we need to have. So basically we say, hey, var grab, what do we want, graph value or whatever. So basically this is just this thing which this thing is giving us back, and that we can add to our start Y position. And now, as you can maybe imagine, our start Y position never changes because, well, we set it once, and then this thing can theoretically change. For now it is not. Why? Because, well, graph X is just set to one value, which is 0 at the very start, and then nothing is happening. So what can we do? Well, we can update it. So we go plus and 0.0, let's go for 5. And because if we would be updating it constantly, we would be going 0, and then we would be shooting out, and then this thing ends. Of course, we can actually do this if we can, because this is no problem. So what you will see, it will go up and down, and then we are done, because we are now over 1 as a value which we put in. So how can we do this? Well, we just say, hey, is our value bigger than 0 or equal to bigger than 1? Well, we reset it to 0. This is how it looks like. So basically we're just making it bigger, and then if we're bigger than 1, make it 0. And what you will see, now we have a complete loop, and then every time we do this movement, as you can see, now we're having a nice hovering effect. And this is the cool part about those animation curves. So basically just playing with values and getting values back and being represented as a graph. So we kill this one. So now you understand what that is. So basically, once again, wow, just this graph looks really terrible. Let's go for hover 2. So once again, you create your graph, you give it a range which can be bigger or smaller, it doesn't really matter. So this is flexible, vertically, horizontally 0 to 1, you cannot change anything. You can just change, give it more points if you like, it doesn't really matter. And then of course, well, you can give it different values, and as you can see, lots of them are here. But of course you can do something like this and kill them, no problem. But here we come to a little issue which I'm finding very interesting. So you can, for example, add another curve, but as you can see, these things are linked. So the first point and from the second curve, these points are linked, and therefore if this one is having 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 points, then the second one will be having 5 points as well. So therefore you cannot just have, let's say, one animation curve and then you just put in all those curves like 50, 20, whatever, how many you can put. Actually, yeah, you can put in a lot. As you can see, quite a lot. So here, if you want to have different kind of animation curves with more or less points, then well, you need to create new ones here. What can we actually do else? So let's say, for example, we say, hey, let's go for a bounce. And what is a bounce in a if you, for example, want to represent it? So let's go for 900 by 900. Come on, Jesus, it's not working. So let's say, for example, we are having, let's make it a little bit more appealing to the eyes, new layer, and we want to paint on it. So what is a bounce? A bounce is something which is going high and high, then a little bit less, and a little bit less, a little bit less, and then it kind of fizzles out to one position. So this is kind of a spring motions, if you want to like. So the forces are very strong at the start and then they fizzle out. And let's say, for example, did we put it in? Yeah, we put it in. Let's start it. This is exactly what it will do. So as you can see, up, and then less, and then. So how can we actually do this? Because, well, you've seen how the bounce looks like, and this is exactly what you will get in the end. So basically, this visual representation where you have a big bounce and then smaller and smaller and smaller, and then of course, what is it? I don't know, between 10 and minus 10, something in between. Then of course you can mark more of them if you don't like the result, put them more down and something like this. You can actually play around and change their position, etc, etc. So as you can see, you now have a visual representation of how the points will be looking like in a time space of 0 to 1. So let's go into bounce, but this is basically the same. We're just grabbing once again the channel, then the curve which we want. For example, we can actually go for 0 because this is the first one, because there's only one in there. We're grabbing, well, the channel and the from the very specific animation curve, so here. Then we're putting that thing into our channel evaluate, where we are getting the value out which we want. So basically we're putting this value in the control position, or I called it position X. It doesn't really matter, it's all the same. It's just one thing which is getting updated, as you can see. So we can loop, and then depending how fast you update it, you can go for a smaller or a bigger value. It doesn't really matter. So here you need to adjust to your thing, and then, well, once again a Y start position, and then the thing which we are getting out of our evaluate script, which is getting and giving us the value back which we want. As you can see, bounce. Yeah, and this is pretty much it. So here we created bounce, and then for example we're having fall. This is kind of similar. So once we started here, a little bit different, because what is falling in the end? So as you can see, this we cannot apply. Falling is if you have a start value, it goes up and here, and then it goes up, and then, so basically something is falling downwards, and then it's just going back up a little bit, then downwards, and then little up, and then it fizzles out again. But we are not going into minus values. So this is the big change here. So how does that look like in, well, in the animation curve for falling? Exactly like this. As you can see, zoom in, a big one, and then small, and of course we want to make it a little bit smoother. That's why we smoothen it out. Cool. So this is basically the idea, not a problem. And of course, if you're looking for hover, we already did this. That's the first one. This is absolutely the same. So this is a perfect in quotations sinus curve, but not with values of 1 to -1, but with 7 to -7 or whatever you want to put in, depending what kind of space you're having and how far or close you are zoomed in. And let's go to the spiral, which I actually showed in the very beginning. Yeah, let's kill this dude, we don't need you once again. And this is a little bit more tricky, because what do you need to understand here? First of all, you're having a circular movement, and in this circular movement we want to make the distance between, well, the starting point and, well, our radius. It's kind of a radius. We want to reduce the radius. So how does that look like? Let's say it graphically once again. Basically we are having a ring, and then we're having a center point, and then in this radius we are just moving around, but this radius we are reducing, so it becomes smaller and smaller during the time, and therefore we get a movement like this, and then we're getting a spiral movement. So how can you actually do this? Quite easy. So let's go into our object, and here let's actually not change that. So basically what do we need to have? First of all, an angle, which is being changed. Why do I need an angle? Because, well, we are using a Lengthdir. Lengthdir is just getting the the start y and x position, and then it's adding an angle and a distance from the angle. And distance is at starters, well, this thing which we are getting back from our animation curve, because we are not updating it. It will now be on one circle and it won't be changing it, so the distance is all the time the same, as you can see. And because, well, we are updating our angle +10, we can go +5, not a problem. Then, as you can see, with Lengthdir, video in the description below if you haven't seen my video on that, as you can see, it's all the time the same. But now we want to reduce the length, so the radius from the center point, so we're getting what we want. So basically what do we do? Well, we are updating our position and making it bigger up to 1. And if you're seeing, well, that thing, as you can see, we're having a big start value and it goes up to 0. So when we are reaching 0 as a value, so we're getting 0 as a value back, well, then the radius is getting smaller, and then at some point we just fizzle into a center point. So what is it? Once again, the same. As you can see, it's getting more and more and more. And this is how you can do a spiral movement. So hopefully now you understand what the animation curves are. Don't get confused with, well, this channel thing, because every time it says channel, but in the end it's just curve. I guess this is a name calling, and they thought this would be a good idea. It's a bad idea in my opinion, but hey, it's a curve, and, well, you're grabbing them and applying it to the stuff you actually want. Of course, you can not just use it for updating positions, you can use it to interpolate some numbers if you like. You can maybe use it for some very specific color coding, so I guess this could be a little bit more interesting and very advanced, and maybe some other stuff which I cannot conjure up, but I guess concerning for animations, this is the main avenue where you want to use it, because here you're getting the most stuff out of it. So basically moving something around so it looks more pleasing to the eye, and the motion is giving you a specific well, impression what it does. So that was it for today. Have a good one. One up indie.